Steelers six-time Pro Bowler provides update on contract negotiations. Steelers veteran defensive tackle Cameron Heyward is seeking a contract extension heading into the final year of his current deal. The six-time Pro Bowler sat out the first 2 weeks of OTAs in hopes of forcing Pittsburgh's hand in giving him some long-term security, but that is not how things have played out. Last month, Heyward revealed that while he has had conversations about a contract extension, nothing is imminent. "There's been communication, but there's nothing really to report on right now," Heyward stated. "I don't think a deal gets done tomorrow, I'll tell you that. I don't want to say how likely something is, 'cause you just never know," Heyward said on The Jim Rohn Show. "Obviously, I would love to be a Pittsburgh Steeler for the rest of my career. Getting a contract would lay claim to that. My goal is to be a Pittsburgh Steeler this year and have a good year to hopefully come back and play more games with them." Heyward is coming off a down year in which he registered just 33 tackles and 2 sacks in 11 games while battling a lingering groin injury, but he believes he still has plenty left in the tank. "I want to be valued at my position. I understand I came off a rough season, but I don't think it's a step down from where I can play," Heyward added. "I think I'm at the top of my game. I'm still a top 5 player at my position." Of course, the Steelers would love to have their longtime team captain and 2023 Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year back, but it must be a fair price for a player entering his 14th season in the league. The two sides still seem to be somewhat optimistic that they will figure something out, but if not, the 2024 season could be Heyward's farewell tour in Pittsburgh. 5 of the most unbreakable records in Pittsburgh Steelers history. It seems far-fetched that any player tops these Steelers records. NFL records are made to be broken, and for a team as long-standing as the Steelers, the franchise has numerous streaks that seem daunting. As the game changes and evolves with more and more opportunities to play, some of the current placeholders will likely fall. Take Ben Roethlisberger, for example. He leads the Steelers in seemingly every passing record, and while his numbers will be safe for a long time, once the next franchise quarterback is found, all bets are off. Those records could fall quickly as well, given the focus of the passing game and the likely continued increase in games played. That said, there are some records that look extremely safe as of right now, and it would take a generational player or stretch of play to better them. Here are 5 unbreakable Steelers records that should stand the test of time. Most unbreakable records in Steelers history. 1. Antonio Brown's 1,834 single-season receiving yards for Steelers. Of the 5 records, this is the one with the best odds of being broken at some point. As stated before, the NFL is dominated by the passing game, so receiving stats should continue to get more and more gaudy. Numbers can also be fluky, as is the case with so many one-hit wonders at the position. Antonio Brown registering 1,834 receiving yards will be a hard one to top though. He was close to breaking the all-time record, set by Calvin Johnson, but his top 5 showing should stand for the immediate future. It was a perfect storm for Brown to get to this mark. He was on an unprecedented streak at that time, registering constant games with over 5 catches, and as any fan remembers, he was dynamic with the ball in his hands. That season also saw him play with a Hall of Fame quarterback on an offense that ran through him. Le'Veon Bell was injured for most of that year. Frankly, that number should have been even higher and likely record-shattering, but Roethlisberger was injured for a good chunk of that year, which slowed down Brown. It would take the Steelers finding both their next franchise quarterback as well as an elite receiver to crack this mark though, and I can't see that happening in the near future. 2. Mike Tomlin's non-losing Steelers record. This has become a double-edged sword for the Steelers, but so far during Mike Tomlin's 17-year tenure as head coach of the Steelers, this team has never had a record below .500. That is a testament to his consistency as a coach as well as his ability to overcome when things get challenging. This record has certainly looked at risk at times, but Tomlin has coached his team through it. On the other side of things, this mantra has become a crutch for the team in recent years. Despite lacking playoff success and Super Bowl wins, fans are quick to defend him with this point. Sure, that is an impressive feat given the ebbs and flows a franchise will take over multiple seasons, but the Steelers have seemingly made decisions based on preserving this record, conservative offensive schemes post-Roethlisberger. This record is still being added to, and unless the wheels fall off this season, it will likely continue. If when it ends, it seems more than likely that no coach will ever come close to that record, let alone another Steelers coach achieve that kind of success. 3. Antonio Brown's 86.2 receiving yards per game for Steelers. Let's dip back into the Brown well. A lesser-known stat, and one that is rarely tossed around, is receiving yards per game. Brown finished his Steelers career averaging 86.2 yards per game. While his total number comes in slightly lower, 84.2 yards per game across his entire career, it is still good for third all-time. If you just counted his totals in Pittsburgh, he would be second on this list, above Calvin Johnson and behind Justin Jefferson. While the majority of the top 25 are still active NFL players, there are 10 retired players who crack that list. Of those 10, 8 of them are Hall of Famers. Sterling Sharpe and Torrey Holt are the lone exceptions. This is a further testament to just how special Brown was in his prime. I find it hard to believe that another Steelers receiver will beat either of those numbers, as Brown ranks among the NFL elite still, despite being retired. It is hard to have that kind of consistency as a receiver with so many other factors in play. Brown benefited from a great quarterback in his own right, but he was one of a kind as a player. It wouldn't just take another elite receiver to put this record at risk, as you will need competent quarterback play as well. Even then, unless you find a connection that is truly special, Brown should be able to hang on to this record given the lack of other names that come even close to that number. 4. Franco Harris's 11,950 rushing yards for Steelers. The NFL used to be a much simpler game, as offenses were built around the ground game, and scoring in general was rare. The game is much different now, and while a team like the Steelers will remain built more traditionally, it still seems far-fetched that anyone will ever surpass Franco Harris's career rushing record of 11,950 yards. The only name remotely close was Jerome Bettis, but he once again benefited from a more run-heavy system. The modern NFL backfield features 2 or more running backs that rotate in on a regular basis. This has allowed for more dynamic backfields, but also fewer individual stats for players. Even when the Steelers took Najee Harris in the first round, a perceived bell cow back, once they found a valid complement in him, he split carries. While Harris will likely end up in the top 10 for the Steelers this season, he isn't close to sniffing Harris's record. Given his contract situation, he could very well be in his final season with the team on top of this. Running back shelf lives are also shorter now as well. It isn't uncommon to see regression after a few years on top, and very few running backs play out their second contracts in their entirety. Unless the Steelers find a generational talent that can defy those trends or said player has an extraordinary stretch of play, Harris's rushing record will likely stand the test of time. 5. Mel Blount's 57 interceptions for the Steelers. A trend from this list, the NFL has geared itself towards the passing game. Another result of this is interceptions are overall down. While every year there will be a few standout players in that category, it is rare to find a consistent double-digit turnover machine anymore. This makes Mel Blount's 57 career interceptions seem like a safe number. Rod Woodson eventually blew past that number for his career, but even he couldn't top this number when he was in Pittsburgh. The only Steelers player from 2000 and on in the top 10 is Troy Polamalu. This isn't just a team-specific issue either. The current league leader in interceptions is Harrison Smith, with 34, and it has taken him a dozen seasons to get to that mark. Interceptions are a fluky stat in general, and while a good defensive back is expected to nab a few a season, expecting high numbers there every season is unrealistic. Next, Odds of Steelers trading for this star receiver are falling apart. Odds of Steelers trading for this star receiver are falling apart. Dark. Current Steelers leader Minkah Fitzpatrick would need 30 more during his time with the team in order to match that number. Over a 12-season career, a player would need to average 4.75 interceptions per season to match that number. Long story short, don't expect to see this record, or any of these other 5, be topped for the Steelers anytime soon. The 10 best tight ends in the history of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steel Curtain ranks the all-time best tight ends in franchise history. Tight end has been one of the more underappreciated positional groups in the NFL. These players have an array of assignments, and their job responsibilities include catching, running routes, blocking, and lining up in various formations. The Pittsburgh Steelers have had several incredible tight ends over the years, which fans won't soon forget. The Steelers have gone through phases in their history when the tight end has been highly utilized as a pivotal piece of their offense. Unsurprisingly, this always lined up when they had an excellent asset in the position. These 10 tight ends have made a name for themselves and stand above the rest of the positional group in Steelers history. The top of the list consists of Pro Bowl players and a lovable fan favorite. Criteria for selection. Comprising Steelers tight end rankings was no easy task. The role of the position has changed drastically over the years. Statistics were considered in these rankings, and many of these tight ends played a heavy role in the passing game. At the same time, there were plenty of tight ends throughout Steelers history who were known for their blocking ability and didn't put up big numbers on the stat sheet. Because of some strengths that can't be measured, I factored each tight end's blocking ability into my ranking criteria. Additionally, I considered factors such as leadership qualities and impact, clutch performances, and intangibles. Longevity and consistency were also taken into account, as players who were with the team longer had a chance to impact the team for a greater amount of time. I took into account considered memorable moments and factored in personal accolades when creating my rankings. I also examined a player's impact on the team and how they aided the offense. The top 10 tight ends in Pittsburgh Steelers history. 10. Vance McDonald. Despite playing 4 seasons in Pittsburgh, Vance McDonald was essentially a one-year wonder. However, his season in 2018 was so spectacular that it's hard to leave him off this list. In 15 games that season, McDonald racked up 50 catches on 72 targets for 610 yards and 4 touchdowns, 8.5 yards per target. McDonald will forever be remembered for his posterizing stiff arm on Chris Conte, which resulted in a 75-yard catch and run for a touchdown. McDonald possessed a powerful 6 feet 4 inches, 267-pound frame with 4.69 speed that helped him handle defenders at the point of attack and make plays after the catch in the receiving game. Unfortunately, McDonald struggled with injuries throughout his NFL career. Between his first 4 seasons on the 49ers and his final 4 seasons on the Steelers, McDonald never started and finished a full season. McDonald's career was over by age 30, but he was a good tight end for the Steelers even with all the injuries he sustained over the years. 9. Jerame Tuman. The hardest part about ranking tight ends is they have so many different roles. Unlike many of the tight ends on this list, Jerame Tuman didn't make his living in the receiving game, rather he was a bullish run blocker who cleared paths for Jerome Bettis, Cordell Stewart, and eventually Willie Parker in the early to mid-2000s. Despite 9 seasons in Pittsburgh, Tuman only recorded 100 receiving yards in a single season one time, 2003. Though he wasn't a focal point of the passing game, the 6 feet 4 inches, 253-pound tight end aided the Steelers to some of the best rushing attacks in the league with his dirty work on the ground. Because of his lack of production, Tuman was never recognized with Pro Bowl honors, but he played 120 games at tight end for the Steelers before signing with the Cardinals for the final season of his decade-long NFL career. 8. Pat Freiermuth. Pat Freiermuth became the first tight end in NFL history to record at least 60 receptions in each of his first 2 NFL seasons. The 2021 second-round pick out of Penn State had an impressive start to his career, but concussions and soft tissue injuries forced him to exit the game on multiple occasions. At 6 feet 5 inches and 258 pounds, Freiermuth looks the part of a traditional tight end but is a better pass catcher than run blocker. While he possesses average athletic traits, his smooth movements, soft hands, and ability to reel in the football in traffic make him a prototype safety valve for the quarterback. Freiermuth is still writing his own story, and he will have a chance to move further up this list if he continues to impress. 7. Preston Carpenter. There aren't many Steelers fans still around today who will remember Preston Carpenter's 4-year stint with the Pittsburgh Steelers in the middle of his 12-year career. Selected by the Browns with the 13th overall pick in 1956, Carpenter started 4 years in Cleveland before coming to the Steel City. In his first season with the Steelers in 1960, the impressive tight end raked in 495 yards and 2 touchdowns on an impressive 17.1 yards per reception in 12 games. 2 years later, Carpenter topped this performance with 492 yards and 4 touchdowns, this time earning Pro Bowl honors. Though Carpenter played his final 4 seasons with Washington, he managed to record 115 catches, 1,680 receiving yards, and 11 touchdowns during his time in Pittsburgh. His 14.6 yards per reception with the Steelers was one of the highest marks we have seen from a tight end in franchise history. 6. Randy Grossman. At 6 feet 1 inch and 218, Randy Grossman probably would have been an H-back or even a wide receiver in today's NFL. Grossman joined the Steelers as an undrafted free agent following a legendary 1974 draft that included numerous Hall of Famers for Pittsburgh. Despite his undrafted status and the fact that the Steelers just selected 21 players in the '74 draft, Grossman suited up for all 14 games during his rookie season. Grossman joined the team at the perfect time, as he would go on to earn 4 Super Bowl rings over his 8-year NFL career in Pittsburgh. Though never a focal point of the offense, Grossman recorded over 130 receiving yards in 6 of 8 seasons with the team. The tight end's best year came in 1978 when he earned 448 receiving yards and scored a touchdown. Grossman finished his career earning 1,514 yards in 118 games with the Steelers. 5. Larry Brown. Larry Brown was best known for his time spent as the right tackle of the Steelers in the late 70s and early 80s. Before this, he was a tight end for 6 seasons in Pittsburgh. 6 feet 4 inches and 246 pounds was huge for a tight end when he joined the league as a 5th-round pick in 1971, but he was essentially used as an extra offensive tackle. Brown started just 1 game over his first 3 seasons, but he saw the field for 36 contests where he mixed it up in the trenches as an extra blocker. By his 4th season, Brown became a full-time starting tight end for the Steelers. The bullying blocker didn't move to offensive tackle until his 7th season in the NFL. Brown earned just 48 catches and 636 yards in his career, but he was a rock-solid player who successfully made a positional change and became a Pro Bowl offensive tackle late in his career. 4. Mark Bruner. The Steelers don't often spend first-round draft capital at the tight end position, but when they have, it typically works out in their favor. With the 27th overall pick, Pittsburgh turned their card in for Washington's Mark Bruner. Unfortunately, head coach Bill Cowher wasn't getting the total package, and Bruner wasn't much of a receiver. Ironically, the most productive season of Bruner's 14-year NFL career came as a rookie when he caught just 26 passes on 48 targets for 238 yards and 3 touchdowns. This was his only season in which he surpassed 200 yards. But that's not what made him a good tight end. Bruner was as reliable as they came as a blocker with his 260-pound frame and hard-nosed football mentality. For 9 years, the powerful tight end did the dirty work in line as a blocker. Bruner's 4.9 yards per target and 55.7 catch percentage over his Steelers' career are detestable numbers, but his blocking ability was so fantastic for nearly a decade that he deserves to be ranked this high among Pittsburgh's all-time tight ends. 3. Benny Cunningham. Benny Cunningham had just about everything you could want at the position. He possessed a 6 feet 5 inches, 254-pound frame back when there weren't many big tight ends in the NFL, and he could move like a wide receiver. This helped him carve out a sizable piece of the offense by his second NFL season in 1977. Cunningham was Pittsburgh's first-round pick, 28th overall, in the 1976 NFL Draft, and the Clemson product did not disappoint. For 7 years from 1977 to 1983, Cunningham averaged over 385 receiving yards per season while scoring 18 touchdowns during this span. Cunningham was drafted just after back-to-back Super Bowl wins by the Steelers in '74 and '75, but he still helped his team to a pair of Super Bowl victories in '78 and '79. He started 80 of 118 games for the Steelers in his 10-year career with Pittsburgh. 2. Eric Green. Eric Green had no business being able to move like he did at his size. Listed at 6 feet 5 inches and 280 pounds, Green was a well-rounded monster at the tight end position. Immediately after being selected with the 21st overall pick by the Steelers in 1990, Green effortlessly put up 387 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns in 13 games. In year 2 in 1991, Green's career took off when he racked up 582 yards and 6 touchdowns on 14.2 yards per reception in just 11 contests. Green cemented himself as one of the best tight ends in the game in the mid-90s when he recorded 63 receptions for 942 yards and 5 touchdowns in 1993. The jaw-dropping tight end earned Pro Bowl honors in back-to-back seasons before leaving the Steelers for the Miami Dolphins during the 1995 offseason. He would go on to play 5 more years for 3 other teams. During his 5 years in Pittsburgh, Green recorded 198 receptions for 2,681 yards and 24 touchdowns. 1. Heath Miller. Tight ends as well-rounded as Heath Miller don't come around very often. Most of the time, teams either chase a great receiving tight end or a great blocking tight end. Miller was the ideal combination of both. At 6 feet 5 inches and 256 pounds, Miller's muscular frame helped him impose his will as an inline blocker. At the same time, he served as Ben Roethlisberger's safety valve in the passing game for more than a decade. The savvy tight end hit the ground running and looked like a veteran during his rookie season when he posted 459 yards and 6 touchdowns in 2005. Miller was a chain mover for the Steelers' offense and routinely came up clutch over the middle of the field on third downs. He could absorb contact and hang on to the football as well as any tight end in the league. By the end of his 11-year career in Pittsburgh, Miller shattered every tight end receiving record while helping his team earn 2 Lombardi trophies. With 592 receptions, 6,569 receiving yards, and 45 career touchdowns, we could be waiting a long time for a Steelers tight end to surpass these numbers. Steelers, DT Cameron Heyward, no closer on extension. Since initially contemplating retirement following an injury-riddled 2023 season, Steelers defensive tackle Cameron Heyward has made it clear that he's looking for a 2-year extension to continue playing in Pittsburgh. In an appearance today on the Jim Rome Show, Heyward didn't have much to say regarding an update to the situation, indicating that a new contract doesn't appear to be imminent. Heyward, 35, has spent all 13 of his NFL seasons with the Steelers, somehow getting better with age. Before reaching the 5th-year option of his first-round rookie contract, the Steelers extended Heyward to a 6-year, $59.25 million deal. Up to that point, Heyward had showed plus attributes as a pass rusher with a career high of 7.5 sacks in a season. After missing the team's final 10 games of the first year of his new contract in 2016, Heyward delivered a career year with 12.0 sacks, 16 tackles for loss, and 22 quarterback hits the following season. Since then, Heyward has perennially been considered one of the top interior pass rushers in the NFL, missing a Pro Bowl last year for the first time since that breakout season. In addition to a down year, Heyward missed more than 2 games with injury for the first time since 2016, sitting out 6 contests near the beginning of the year. That groin injury was part of Heyward's consideration to hang up his cleats, but the Steelers are expecting Heyward to rebound strongly in 2024. Since expressing his desires for a new contract, Heyward sat out of all spring activities for Pittsburgh. A month ago, he put forth the idea that he'd like to retire with the Steelers sometime after a new 2-year deal. A week later, Heyward reeled in the line a bit, claiming that, should Pittsburgh pass up another contract, he'd be open to playing in a new city in 2025, after his current deal expires. The only big piece of new information in today's interview was that Heyward has already ruled out at least one destination should he hit the free agent market. Despite having attended college in Ohio with the Buckeyes and having family in the Cleveland area, Heyward doesn't see himself in brown and orange. He claimed that he didn't think he could play for a Steelers rival with such bad blood should he move on. That would likely rule out the Ravens and Bengals as well, but for now, his focus remains in Pittsburgh.